The first thing I'm going to do is go over the note sheet from the video and just kind of go over what the video is talking about. The first thing it said is the history is the study of humans, people, and their actions. So in history, we're looking at what people did in the past. So we're looking at people and what they do. We're also understanding how past events impacted our world. So we're looking at, what happened in the past. How has that shaped and changed what we do today? So looking at why do we study history? First reason is we can learn from our past mistakes, or from past mistakes. Countries can look at what other countries have done in the past and mistakes that those other countries have made and learn from that and do something different in the future. Our country can look at our past mistakes, our country can look at other countries' past mistakes and decide to make changes for the future. It also helps us kind of look at ourselves as well as a person. And as a person, I can look at my past mistakes and others' past mistakes and improve my future. Next, we can learn why people, cultures, governments, and countries are in their current state. So why do these countries make the decisions that they do? Why do these countries have the traditions and customs that they do? We can look at what they have gone through in the past and what they have viewed as important in the past, and it gives us a picture of why they do what they do today. And again, that's the same for people. As we get to know people and know their story, their history, it gives you a better understanding of why people act the way they do, why they might say the things they do, why they might like what they do. So learning about the past gives us an idea of why people, cultures, governments, and countries do what they do. Studying history also allows us to develop critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is asking questions. When you're asking those why questions. Why does this happen? Why do they like that? Why don't they like that? Why did they react this way? That's part of critical thinking. It's also looking at different little parts and getting all those little parts to make a whole picture. That's part of critical thinking. When we study history, that's what we do. Just like when we're doing the personal artifacts, or when you guys were looking at the items I brought that told what I did this summer. You're looking at the little parts to try and see the big picture. You were using critical thinking. Critical thinking also causes you to see more than one thing, more than one point of view. Down here it says it makes us ask questions. Well, those are those why questions. And seek multiple perspectives. Perspectives are those point of views. One person is going to view a situation very differently than another person, just because they have different experiences. They have different likes, interests. And so in history, we have to look at situations from more than one point of view to get the whole picture. Part of this, critical thinking is also looking at, knowing what has or has not worked in the past. We're going to take that, we're going to look, okay, what has worked and what has not worked. And we're going to use that to help us to improve and continue to move forward. So when we're studying different parts about history, we're not just studying it so you know it. While it is good for you to know, it's also so that you can look at the past and see what has worked and what has not worked, and use that to make decisions about what to do. It also helps you have an understanding of other people. That way you can see that, they have a different situation, and that may be why they do things differently than you do. That's why we study history. Now we're going to go on to the next part of your assignment. We're going to talk about what history is. So the recorded and other events of people, or the study of the past, is known as history. That's what history is. History is just looking at the recorded and other events of people in the past. History started being recorded or written down about 5,500 years ago. Before then, history was just passed down by word of mouth. They might have been telling those stories around the campfire at night, or they might have been, just as they were doing their daily chores, telling their past, their history to their children, just as they're walking down the road, talking about it, just in their everyday life. So that time before history was written down is pre-history. Now, someone who studies and writes about history is known as a historian. A historian is the one who studies and writes about history. And historians are going to use three main types of tools to study history. The first tool is objects made by human beings. The name for these objects is artifacts. Examples of artifacts could be an arrowhead, or maybe some furniture, or some dishes, jewelry, earrings, inventions, just any object made by people. The second main type of tool that historians will use are stories that are passed down by word of mouth. Not the written stories, but the stories passed down by word of mouth, by telling them. And those are known as oral history. Oral means mouth, so if you think about, having an oral appointment, it's usually a dentist or orthodontist appointment. So oral history is the history that is passed down by word of mouth. And then finally, the third main type of tool used by historians are actual writings that have been preserved for the future, so writings that have been written down. And this is called written records. Written records are the actual writing, so that might be a journal or a diary, or maybe there was an actual person who was writing down history and documenting it. Now those are the written records. Now for the next part of your assignment, there's a form where you're supposed to, for part of the form, you're supposed to describe different items and tell whether or not it's an artifact, oral history, or written record. And that is what is at the bottom of here. So you're going to be looking at, someone telling a story, and you're going to decide, is that an artifact, oral history, or a written record? And then also an arrowhead. You'll decide, is that artifact, oral history, written record? And then there'll be 3 or 4 other items that you'll be deciding as well. So you'll think about, if it's an artifact, that's an object made by people. Oral history is someone just telling the history to someone else with their words, with their mouth, not writing it down. And then written records are the actual writing. So that could be a book, or maybe there's a stone tablet that has the written language on it, like hieroglyphics, which is picture words. So there's many different types. If you have any questions on your assignment, always make sure send me a chat in Teams, or send me a message on Remind, or give me an email.